Hello ladies and gentlemen, today I'm bringing you a special edition of the show. I got into the Overwatch beta for the weekend only. I'm just the weekend beta player. I've had time enough now to play about 50 games. Games last anywhere from 4 minutes on a really, steamroll type of game to about 10, 12 to 15 minutes on one that goes back and forth a little bit. So even though it's only been here for a day or two, I've had lots of time to play. I've played every single character at least once, if not more. And so I want to give you my thoughts, and I'm going to give you the sort of good, bad, and ugly about the game. Now, the good. Variety of characters. There's tons and tons and tons of characters. I didn't actually count how many, but I'm going to guess that there's probably about 20, somewhere in there. Each of them has kind of a different setup of abilities and skills. They feel unique enough that they're differentiated from one another. There are hard counters to some characters. So if you've got a sniper, you can take your rocket guy. I can't remember what her name is. Kahir or something like that. Kashir maybe? Not sure. Anyway, so you can kind of go back and forth with the other team and team composition. You can see what you're up against. You could switch heroes in the middle of the game to compensate for weaknesses in your setup and try to push through the defenses. For the social justice warriors out there like Anita Sarkeesian, who we all know and love sarcastically, there are a variety of girl characters in the game, and there's a variety of races in the game. The first time I've ever seen an ethnically Indian female character in a game before. I can't remember her name either, but she's one of the healer chicks that does things with crystals. Puts up the teleporter. Kind of a neat character, not all that powerful, but pretty neat. Graphically, the game is pretty damn good, I would say. Even on lower settings, the game still looks pretty good. So I have no complaints there. The artistic style is very Blizzard-esque. It's cartoony, but it's very smooth, very stylistic, and I think the graphics overall are pretty good. Performance-wise, as I've said in a couple of my other videos, my machine is starting to age. I've got an i5 3.4 gigahertz quad core or something like that, a 660 Ti 2 gigabyte graphics card, and 16 gigs of RAM. So that's the important specs of my system. And I can run it on high at about 25 frames per second, but I prefer to run on low at about 60. So I think the game shooters are always better to run at higher frame rates. Frankly, the game has so many graphical effects in it as it is already. I would recommend trying to tune that down to some degree because you can see a little bit better. So overall, performance-wise, even on an aging machine, the game plays fairly well. I would not recommend going to ultra settings and high settings unless you've got a machine that can run that at 60 FPS. And probably, I would guess, if you've built your machine in the last 2 years or so, you could probably run Ultra at 60 FPS. No problem, because even my machine is running 60 FPS, probably at medium settings, somewhere around there. I had some major issues with Fallout 4. I could not get anywhere over 30 frames per second consistently. I think the game is pretty unoptimized, but this one very, very well optimized, so if you've got an older machine, don't worry too much about it. Now, let's get on with the bad of the game, because that's really all I see as the good so far. The price of the game is set to be $40 US, $60 Canadian, which is a really crazy price for the Canadians anyway. The game, to me, quite honestly feels like it should be a free-to-play game. And the reason I say this is because Team Fortress 2, which was originally packaged in the orange box, which Team Fortress 2 is the game that this game is trying to copy. There's no question about that. That was originally packaged in orange box with Half-Life and Portal. And that was $40 when it first came out, and it went down to something really, really cheap after that. Now the game is free to play because they've learned to monetize the crap out of that game with hats and box keys and whatever. Counter-Strike, $15. They do the same thing with their boxes. That's how they make their money, is on skins and boxes. This game is not taking that approach. I think that they will have microtransactions later on, which kind of is a little bit iffy. I'm not sure if they've made that call 100% yet. but the game is going to ship with a box price, and this game just does not feel like a box price game. There's not a whole lot there, to be honest. Once the map design is done and the character animations are done, what's left to do? There's no content development. They're not making like quests or new items, anything like that. So where are the costs in it? I think this game could easily be released as a free-to-play. So, another thing that's bad about the game, at least to me, is that the game feels very, very chaotic. When you play a game like Counter-Strike, or you play a game like, well, I'm gonna date myself, but SOCOM, that's where I got my start in first-person shooters. You play a game like old Battlefield games, Team Fortress 2 even. There's some order to the quote chaos in that, so you know where the enemies are going to be coming from. You can prepare your defenses for that. You can see the enemies can see you if you're not behind camouflage or something. There is a set way of progressing forward in the map. This game, and I'm going to talk about maps in just a second, but this game to me feels like chaos a lot of the time. You don't know where you're being shot from. You don't know where your enemies are. There's bombs going off everywhere. You have no idea how to evade what's happening or where to set up as far as your defenses go. The main well, there's two reasons for this. One is that the graphics in the game are so flashy that you can barely see in front of your face half the time. But secondly, and segueing into the next bad part, is that the map design is very, very weak in my opinion. You look at games like Team Fortress 2, who has very good map design from the developers and from the community. The maps have, certainly in a few places, they have ways to get around the choke points. But the game needs to have choke points in order for the attacking team to coordinate and push through, and for the defending team to know where they should be defending. There's a couple maps that have choke points in this game that I've played so far. There's the one, I can't remember what map it is, but it's got a little barricade, sort of two walls into a courtyard area right at the start. And that's perfect because it gives the defense a way to set up. It gives the offense something to push toward. But a lot of these maps have so many little hidden tunnels and passageways and ways you can jump over walls and these sorts of things that it really doesn't add a whole lot to the game. In fact, it takes away from it strategically. So I think they need to go back to the drawing board on their map design, honestly. This is not an open type of game like Battlefield where you think, well, it's a huge field, they could be anywhere, but you've got ways to sort of deal with that. You know, you've got camouflage and that sort of thing. In this game, it should be very linear, in my opinion anyway. I mean, the best Team Fortress 2 maps were very linear in the sense that you need to go through this choke point and then you're into an open area, and then you need to go through this choke point and then you're in an open area. It creates sort of a strategy and a skill ceiling for the attack to push through and the defense to defend. In this game, too many tunnels. There's way too much going on at one point in time. I'm getting shot from place X, Y, and Z while I'm trying to defend from guys that are behind me. I mean, you got characters like Reaper that can literally teleport behind the defensive lines. They don't need to have all of those different passageways and whatever. So, in my opinion, map design, very poor quality of this game. They need to improve on it if they're going to have any sort of competitive scene whatsoever. That's one of the last bad things about the game, is I don't think you're going to get a competitive scene in this game. They don't have a scoreboard, first of all, so you can't even really have any sort of bragging rights as to I did well in this game, or I did really poorly, or I dominated this character, or this guy on the other team really schooled us. Like typical Blizzard games, they're coddling the player, they're touching you with baby gloves. They don't want you to feel bad that you're a completely terrible player at the game, and they don't want the people that do well at the game to have bragging rights. They did this in Heroes of the Storm as well, which they've recently changed because of the community saying, this is stupid, why can't we have a leaderboard? For those who have not played Heroes of the Storm, they had like a takedown stat. So it combined like your killing blows, and it also combined assists that you were involved in. And players didn't like it too much because it didn't give you a good idea of how well you were doing in the game. They've since changed it now to having final killing blows, and it certainly makes a big difference. When I look at my performance in Heroes of the Storm and I say, wow, I had like 10 assists, but I only had 1 actual killing blow, I know I'm not playing well one-on-one. I'm supporting my teammate, but I'm not playing well one-on-one. So in this game, they give you very bare stats, and I'll put a few things up on the video here as well, just to kind of show you what the stat screen is like. Not good enough. It's completely insufficient for a shooter game. Shooter games need leaderboards. Shooter games need killing blows, assists, healing done, damage taken, etc., etc. Let's move on to the ugly of the game, and this is a deal breaker for me, there is some sort of mouse lag in the game. I have tried all that I can to fix this. I've tried sensitivities, whatever. I'm not the only one experiencing this. Blizzard claims that this is a GPU issue. This is bullshit, because I've managed to run the game at 70 frames per second. They said, oh, well, the GPU isn't able to keep up, so it's lagging the mouse behind. This is crap. This is total crap. People have confirmed this. This is not the case, Blizzard. Something is in the coding where there is either a mouse smoothing or mouse acceleration. You can clearly feel it. If you've come from a game like Counter-Strike that has very real raw input on their mouse, you can clearly 100% feel that there's mouse lag in this game. It makes aiming with characters like McCree is his name, makes it really, really tough. You know, a shooter needs to have, first and foremost, good aiming. If you don't have good aiming in a shooter, it has a fundamental flaw. Period. This game has a fundamental flaw in it. They need to fix the mouse smoothing, and they need to fix the mouse acceleration. Whichever one it is. We need true raw input. What this does in the game is it advantages characters that shoot without an accurate weapon. Things like rocket launchers, bomb launchers, you know, if there was a flamethrower, then that, shotguns, anything like that gets a huge advantage over characters that have to tactically target, like snipers or McCree with his revolver. Big flaw. This is a deal breaker for me. It's frustrating to play the game and to feel your mouse lagging behind your inputs. So, would I recommend this game to people? If you can get it for free, yes. Is it worth 60 bucks? Absolutely not. Don't even buy it. The game, while somewhat fun, really doesn't have any lasting power, and until they make the mouse a raw input, I'm finished with it. It's a deal breaker. I'm glad I got the opportunity to try the beta, because I was definitely planning on buying the game, but until I hear an announcement that they're fixing the mouse lag issues, that's it for me. I mean, if you guys want to make up your own mind, and I very much encourage you to do, if you get into beta, I wouldn't be a buy recommendation for me, but if you get into beta, you can try it out yourself. That's all I got to say about it, guys. There's some good, there's a lot of bad, and there's a major amount of ugly in this game, so my opinion, it doesn't pass the bar. Thanks very much for watching, guys. We will see you next time. Bye-bye.